Hi, beloved ones. Ones who are whole. Ones who are ones. That have no opposite. In regards to God inside of you, to God outside of you, there is only one. Whom I address as you. Hello. Going back from the last video, which was cut off, I hope to reiterate some things that were said there, what I thought was said, which was said, if you are able to attune to that. Projection. But my dear friends, I understand, even for myself, that there are times when it can be very difficult to attune to the higher realms, to the more real and permanent, woven ideas, laws of creation. So what I wish to say here, I guess, is a bit of what I have said before, which is, I don't know. And as I don't know, I will know. That's kind of how it works in a sense. But even beyond this, beyond the affirming that we don't know, there is a wholeness where everything that needs to be said and should or should not be said is irrelevant. Because in the now, in the moment that concurs to you hearing me right now, there is only oneness in the presence of our real self, which is nowhere we have to go. It's nowhere we have to look for per se. And this is probably what I wish to talk about. But we will see. I hope that you have been making good use of your time and energy, knowing what is good and evil, quote unquote. For the relative games are fading away from this world, and those who are wishing to continue to live their lessons here are going to have to continue to pick another place, because the room for this type of reality will not have space unless others are really willing to die from their mortal sense of identity to be reborn into this reality. And so what we have the ability to concoct together today is perhaps something that will assist you and I and those in the collective consciousness to begin to understand that in their job, in their relationships, and their daily affairs, there can be an experience that pinches away at what they and us have been told of that which is already manifest, which would not include the ever-expanding creativity that make up our identity. So, beloved ones, what I think is important to talk about today is perhaps going back again. What I was talking about the primal self and these selves, these false or separate selves, personalities you can say, that we have created from this primal self. And what was this primal self? For a lot of us, it was engineered when we witnessed extreme circumstances of pain, primarily from specific individuals with a sophisticated understanding of the laws of creation, undergoing a force-based approach that was in opposition to God. But that's the subtle thing I will distinguish here is, but for God, it is not an opposite. And how is this so in this teaching that I'm trying to weave together? It is one of the most subtle awakening understandings we could possibly have on the path of us having no opposition, no opposite, only oneness, only that which is a part of us. And it's a gradual path, and there are certain choices that we have every day and every week and every month and year where there are certain choices that come up for us to take or not take. And some of these choices involve being uncomfortable. That was symbolic. Being uncomfortable about looking at who we are and the potential of who we are, of the ability that can be released to an individual when we meet on the street, or when we meet in the store, when we meet in our job, or when we meet in our family or at home and our friends. The potential that we have with anyone. And as it's been stated before, nothing has to be said, nothing has to be done, nothing should confirm that you are spiritual by you doing a certain list of various spiritual things. And they may be assisting people like you and around the world to understand a greater totality of who you are. But that can only come to a point. And what I'm saying here is this potential that we all have can come through words, beloveds. And so many of us doubt it. So many of us think that people will go crazy. And yes, in a way, they may get frustrated because they have not heard the truth for millennia. And yet, in every moment, the truth is being presented to them, as they, of their own selves, do have a presence that is igniting what I have spoken of before as the threefold flame. And this flame and their I am presence, which is the overseeing higher self, is always releasing impulses for the individual to see a higher perspective. But there is a cooperative choice from what we know as our spirit, or our conscious self, the conscious you, has the choice to follow it or not. And it doesn't come across like, oh, I am your higher self, and here you have a choice to do this, or you have a choice to do that. This is the effect of this, and that is the effect of that. It is much, much, much more subtle. And when you tune in to this, I guess you could say, energy of what happens from our choices that we do, and even higher, as a higher form of that, or what are the effects of not just our choices, but our ideas, our labels, our identifications, our understanding about life. How does that affect us? Most people don't care because they enjoy the materialistic pleasures that give very quick physical sense stimulation. And so they are fine with not questioning the higher perspective about their own creativity, their own God individuality. And this is precisely not a wrong choice, in the sense that by doing so, you will get a very quick reward. But if they knew better, they would understand that their choices would actually have a greater impact on them feeling, instead of very comfortable, very uncomfortable. As far as what nature, the economy, war, famine, disaster, disease, there are many things that can outpicture in the form of uncomfortability. And by the collective civilization choosing to not understand the effects of their ideas, their labels, they undergo a process of day by day programming, but there's also an intergrained cave where the further you walk in, the less and less you can see the light. And that's a very good symbology, because people are going through this in a day-by-day, moment-by-moment process. And the more they don't look at it, the more they feel this tension. The more they feel that even if they do admit that they were wrong, that they don't have the highest idea, that whatever it may be, that means that they would have to see that all their years of however embodiments, maybe not on the outer form, but how much energy they have put in this lifetime and other lifetimes into video games, drugs, sex, movies, various forms of vanity and cultural, I guess you could say, comfortability, where there may be some fun in games, but the primary revolving status quo is not transcending the current state of consciousness, which is the river of life. And the river of life is who we are. And precisely, people will get mad at you. People will begin to yell at you and say all kinds of things at you. For the third time, I was escorted out of Home Depot. Not because I was going around and telling people what they should do, but I was just, I guess you could say, talking about the subject of university. I love that word. It has a very strong connotation to education. Isn't that interesting? And just random people. I mean, I believe there's a deeper reason why I talk to who I talk to, and some of them I'm more aware, because sometimes I choose specifically couples. Some of them I choose strong, really buff men, because I know inside of me I have this doubt. I have resistance towards certain types of people, and in order to break down these false selves, I have to face them by seeing them and the outpicturing of me standing in the face of whatever idea I think that will be projected upon me, and still know I am the living Christ. The living Christ I am. I am the one in all. I am the only presence acting. So on and so forth. I plan on going back to that store, but my point is that there's going to be a lot of tension between people and us, but a lot of it's got the connotation that we won't feel whole, that we won't feel connected, we won't feel like we won't be happy when we're in this presence of oneness. That in that, or as that, I should say, you're just exuberating your light in the form of words, in the form of being, in the form of understanding, which actually creates in your own energy field, or in the energy, yes, it's yours, but in the environment around you, tension, because there are people upholding a direct opposition to what you think, to what you're saying, to what you're doing. And though it may not be opposite to oneness and you and your state of being, it's opposite to them. At least to the ego. And even if you weren't there with you being the one, there will always be opposition between people, between things, because that is duality. There always needs to be some sort of opposition. Just like the power elite who, quote unquote, rule the world, there's an aspiring power elite who are trying to take them down and enter into this greater power that they have, or the commanding power elite has. And what I want to say here is, for me, although it's been relatively around a month, specifically 2 weeks of more intensive decision making, where I do confront people, not to change them, not to force them, but to just be who I am, as far as sharing the interconnectedness on a deeper level that does know that people are totally unaware of this and that they will probably be shocked, but to give them that opportunity, it's really just opportunity to come back to the light. I think another analogy that just popped in my mind is people have gone down this cave and they've kept on going, and the light is just, it'll always be there, but it just gets dim and more dim and more dim. And then when we come into their lives, all of a sudden, it's not that the light gets brighter, it's that somehow in their cave, wherever they're at, there is a air hole, a skylight, you can say, where there is a piercing, no matter how far down, where there is light, and where they can be like, oh, light. In however fashion your presence of you, the one, wish to exuberate it. It's all individual, and yet it is all collective, because we're all one in the allness, which is a place, and it is also beyond place. From what we can imagine in either space, time, or idea, it is beyond. And so, my beloved, the courage I wish to impart to you today is that in each choice where we decide to take a stand into this greater oneness, there is a very intense physical change that happens. And in the beginning, and it still feels like for me, like you're dying. And that's just part of the process of entering into the rebirth of universal consciousness. And for me, I'm getting to know it a bit more. I'm being graced with certain living conditions that is allowing me to have certain space for I mean, I'm not even going to say this because I think it's kind of irrelevant, but just to kind of give a little subtle point, with the time that I have now, with the age that I'm at now, I precisely have been able to receive help in certain various ways, spiritually and physically, in order to do certain things, to make certain choices that have gradually got me to the point of understanding the highest possible choice from the place of being the one. Which I always have been, beyond even recognizing these higher choices, but the conscious self has the ability to experience that or not, even though its real self is unaffected by it. The conscious us is pure awareness. And that pure awareness can attach itself to specific matrices, certain thought forms, labels, and identifications that may very well be pure. That may very be including oneness, the allness, the universal presence. So what do I wish to say? Well, it's really beyond words, this courage that we all can have. It's really it's a state of being. Whereby you know any annoyance as flies trying to climb on you is just another part of you climbing on itself. And beyond this, it's really beyond words. And there comes a point where you do have to expose these things in your mind, these choices and the effects of your choices, understanding the identifications we have made. And yet there's also another process of making choices, making physical, decisive, interactive choices, interaction with people, in order to really cast off these layers. You know, it may be able to be done without doing that, but I sense that would take a long time. And with what I've experienced within 2 weeks, I don't have a job per se at this moment in time. So I've been going out of my house into various businesses and just being. And I've probably talked to, within the month, 100 people, more or less. But about that. And looking back at my life, wow, that's a big beetle. Hey, my friend, you are a big beetle. Oh God, that's a big thing. And over my past life, I mean this life, in years, I probably refused to talk to that many people in a decade. Literally, authentically, sincerely. And if that can take place in a matter of a month, and it's not about comparing here, about who gets more, or who can transform the most energies of this primal self. No. But I just want to embark to you that for myself in this period of time, and me doing this over this period, the ease in talking to someone about truth, about the lies that they've taken on, has, I don't want to know if 50% is the right number, but I would like to say, as a fact, at least 25-30% of this fear of talking to people, of this doubt going away. I think that's phenomenal. Just to understand